trust and gain credibility every time they communicate, including some of the leaders of the G7.
Hey, I'm high.
I'm Chase Hughes. I'm a best-selling
I
author
said
and
I'm
listening
high.
influence.
And people will think
I
I'm
did 20 years in the
high.
U.S. military, and
But I
nowadays
meant
I'm a trial consultant, and I teach all of
high.
those skills to the general public and law firms around the country. I'm Greg Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator,
That's
interrogation
hilarious,
instructor,
but no.
resistance to interrogation instructor, public defense
I wish I could show you what's in the cup.
Created this course,
It's wine.
BodyLanguageTactics.com with Scott, that has become the #1 online learning for body language.
So I've been thinking about my channel, and I've been like feeling like it's off, and it's because for me it's just like I want to record my life, but I feel like I'm doing stuff for the camera, which I am, and it's fine. Because at one point I'm probably just gonna want to do stuff for the camera. But I also do want to record my life, and like I feel like I watch interesting things, and I'm just gonna talk through this, but I'm not gonna be disrespectful. Like I actually let them do their intros, but I'm actually talking over it. Don't know if I should let that play, but don't know how long I can let it play. So I'm actually just gonna keep it like that. You didn't even hear the first person's name, but I'm gonna just okay. So there's 4 people, 2 on top, 2 on the bottom. 1 on top and bottom on the left. Well, 1 on top on the left and 1 on the bottom on the left. 1 on the right top, 1 on the left top. Other right bottom, right top. You know what I'm saying? Like there. Okay. So Greg, Chase, Scott, Mark. Those are the guys. They're pretty cool in my eyes because what they do is pretty interesting, even though I feel like it'll be boring to most people, but probably not since it has 51K views. But those could be people who are either interested like I am, but mostly doing the work they're going to do. So these are people who are like been in the game for a long time. So it's like, oh, we about to hear like strategy plans and how to detect stuff basically from a pro, from people who have made websites and wrote books, doing some legendary things out there. So the video is Tarek Mentor's body language on the Dr. Phil show by the behavior panel. And it's usually those 4 guys that I named. I didn't say their whole name. I don't know if that's disrespectful. I'm just going to do that now. Gray Hartley, Chase Hughes, Scott Rouse, Mark Bowden. I think I said that name. Well, I don't think I said it wrong. I feel like I pronounced it wrong. My pronunciation is not the best. But going on with this, these are the people I like watching. They're pretty interesting to me. I think they're pretty interesting, well, at least. So I'm just going to let them. Well, you're not going to be able to see what I can see, maybe. If I stay like this and just look up, like maybe if I can move this up more. Yeah, like if I stay like this, but look up, I could see it, and you could kind of see it through my glasses because I could see the reflection in it, but not well. Like, I think, yeah, it's just reflecting me, actually. Huh. That's pretty cool, though. I didn't realize it was just reflecting me, not the TV. How I have tricked myself. Okay. I feel like I talk weird, but weird in a great weird. Like, I feel like I sound nice while talking, but how I word things is weird. That's probably why. See, I just understood myself in a new way, in a new level. And I am very happy about that.
It looks to us like he's holding stuff back, and we may be able to get some stuff out of it that you may not be able to get, or that the show may not be able to get, but from what we're telling you. So, Greg, why don't you explain what we did?
Yeah, so what we did was we came up with a plan that involved all four of us. And I get to be the bad guy. I get to be the guy
Oh
that
my
opens
God.
with a really hard gouge. And I go at this guy pretty hard early. And then Mark steps in. And, of course, Mark sounds like he's
Oh.
going to rescue this kid.
He down
He's looking
here.
and going, and then Mark, of course, does
right
the rescue. And Mark just compounds
down
and twists
corner,
a little more.
bottom
And
corner.
Scott steps in. And Scott had introduced us to him. So he thought, okay, at least I have a rescuer here. And Scott then went and poked him really, really hard. And then
No,
Chase
he's talking about
was
Scott,
standing
top
there waiting for him
corner,
at the end of the
right.
at the end of the run, and he was thinking, okay, finally. And Chase was not his friend either. Chase was not aggressive. Chase plugged some things into his head. We're not going to tell you what they are. You were watching on Dr. Phil's probably in the first place. But Chase did some really good interrogation.
Chase
close.
is
So you'll see that and understand we had a plan, and each of us
bottom
played a role,
left.
and
Also,
we get
Greg
well
is the one
scripted
talking
out.
right now.
Because I've done a lot
He
of
is
interrogations.
top
I've done a lot of
left.
interrogation
Why am I
training.
just
This is the
narrating this to
smoothest
you? It's
coordinated,
because I feel like you
orchestrated
need to
approaches I've been
actually
part of. So thank you for
understand where they are.
Great.
So when I'm like this, like this, like this, like
So
this,
let's
like
take a
you
look at
understand
the-
who I'm
we
looking
chopped
at.
this down to, I think 5 or 6 videos, and we'll look at these one at a time and tell you what we saw in those. And one of the things that showed us why we could get more information out of them.
Okay.
I see. You just moved to a different part of town. Got it.
Wow.
So would you say then that your business has
Oh
been,
my
you're trying to
God.
look over at the
Looks
other
like a
screen.
grimy ass camera.
Would you say
I know
your
mine
business
look
has
grimy
been
too. I'm not even gonna lie.
successful?
Mine looks grimy. You can barely see me. That's fine. I feel like you still see me smile
you
though.
bet.
Like,
All right.
yeah.
Chase, what do you got?
This was the most incredible thing. I've not been this excited about a behavioral analysis clip for a while.
Wait. Something happened. I was
We'll look at these one at
I
a
was
time and tell you what we
gambling.
saw in those. And one of the things that showed us why we could get more information out of them from his personality.
I see. You just moved to a different part of
I
town.
was letting
Got
my
it.
mouth talk.
So would you say then that your business has been, keep trying to look over at the other screen if you don't mind. Would you say that your business has been successful?
The business has been very successful.
You've gotten.
All right. Chase, what do you got?
Oh my God, bro. Bro's body language. He was just like, yeah, my business is very successful. I'm like, is it though? I'm being a little extra. Like, he didn't do all of that. I would say more of the beginning was truly the video, and then I went a little extra at the end, but that's basically what it was. Just, yeah, like, my business very, very successful. Is it though? You looking a little too upset. You're looking a little too upset for it to be quote unquote successful. I love saying that quote unquote. Funnest.
This was the most incredible thing. I've not been this excited about a behavioral analysis clip for a while. This is an identical replication of what Richard Nixon did when he backed away from the podium and he said, "I am not a crook." And then he folded his arms up. It's a perfect thing. So there's two things involved there. We have the little backward body movement called the postural retreat. And we have that arm folding, which is great behavior. And it's indicative of deception, according to me. And he ends his statement with some chin boss movement, this little grief muscle right here, what some people call it, that we express grief with. and there's lip compression at the end. This told me that while we're interrogating him, he is hyper aware of how he appears to other people socially. So he wants the background of the room to have fresh paint. Everything in there is very clean and tidy. He wants his business to look good. I know with my approach that I need to structure my questions a certain way. Everyone's got different theories about interrogation stuff. My personal thing that I follow is if a person knows they're being interrogated, I'm not doing a good job. And I'm going to need to use that psychological part that I've just learned from this clip to ask him questions a different way. Scott, what do you got?
All right. I built my whole theory and
Wow,
approach to this guy on the.
I swear-
I feel like
I
he's
just
a
want to
psycho.
say something. They be dropping dimes. Like, if you want to just want to change, like, if you just want to get information, like, just change the question up a little bit. Try to figure out another way to explain or get them to talk to you. Like, oh, okay. You just go drop that little dime. You just like, here. Like, here you go. You drop it. Oh, thank you. Greatly appreciate it.
Most people are under the impression, let me give a little background on that. Most people are under the impression if you were to give a psychopath a knife and send him into a room, he's going to start stabbing everybody or chopping everybody up. That's not so. The thing with psychopath is there's a part of your brain called the amygdala, and that's part of the part of your brain that turns on fight or flight. It deals with empathy and sympathy and those types of feelings. And usually when you're dealing with a psychopath, the amygdala are either missing or damaged or something's just not right about it. And you can tell that's what's going on in an fMRI machine in a study when you study the brain. So there's that. The things that started flipping me little cues that we may be dealing with a psychopath was his narcissistic approach to his answers and the way he acted and his behavior. Going to what Chase said as well, from all things from the way he looked, his concern about the way he was accepted socially, everything about him told me that. For example, when she asked him to stop looking at the screen, to stop looking at himself, because he's looking at himself, and not only does when she tells him to stop to look back at her and look back at the other monitor, it takes him a second to come off of that monitor and look at her. That's number one. And then number two, we've seen grooming. Greg's he's going to talk about that in a few minutes about this eye thing he's doing. He's pushing on his eye. He's trying to make sure he looks good as he's looking at himself. We don't see any concern with him about what's going on. We see no concern whatsoever. Because when you're dealing with a psychopath, and this is just my feelings, this is what I believe, I'm not saying that he is, they're not worried about what's going to happen to them because they can't. They have no feelings. They have no empathy. They can't say, here's what's going to happen, here's how it's going to affect me, and I'm going to feel this way. You won't see that on them most of the time. As you go along, they'll learn to mimic people's emotions. They'll mimic your emotions, someone that you know that maybe when they'll start acting like you do, or they'll act like someone else does. I'll get in depth as we go along because I think, in my opinion, that's what we're dealing with. I could be completely wrong, but I think that's what we're dealing with. And then I'll talk about the differences in a sociopath and a psychopath as we go as well. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so I always say, people say, well, you're not a psychologist.
I don't know what to say. I know I should be saying something for a moment at least.
If you touch it enough,
I
what
hope-
something is. So,
I hope
Scott, I wouldn't
it
apologize
wasn't
for
a
what you
big
see.
break.
But for me,
Damn.
this was
could've
immediate. I
been.
knew this guy has a problem. You can see him doing what I call requests for approval as he's constantly talking. His brow is up and he's trying to get you to say it's okay. Kind of like a child who knocks over the cookie jar and then you look at him and say, did you break the cookie jar? And he goes, no, it was the cat. Until you say, okay, and then a little brow drops. He's doing that. But, interestingly, you have a dominant eye. Anybody who shoots,
Oh my
that dominant
God.
eye is where you
It's
put your
funny
data
because I
and
thought
they
he
use
was
it that
acting
way.
like a child a
This
little
guy's
bit.
dominant eye is
And he's
shrinking
just
as he
like,
gets
yeah,
more and
he's
more
acting like a
aggressive.
child.
He
I'm like,
show up on the show, and I knew I had a brand I could put in his head and he could not
Oh.
escape. So when we talk about, and I agree with you, Chase, when I'm usually interrogating, I don't want you to know you're interrogated. But when I am approaching you and I'm trying to pitch everything and set it up so that when he is getting interrogated at the end, he doesn't realize it. The harder I am, the better it is. So I plugged into his head early. Look, dominant eye is shrinking, and that's an indicator that you don't like what you're hearing and you're trying to escape it. So we did brow rise, dominant eye, intake issue. And then when she said, is your business successful, or words to that effect, he said, my business is very successful. And he uses that same speech pattern later when he's deceptive again. And then the other final one is watch his head shrink.
But he wasn't deceptive at all.
And that's threat response.
That's
As he
what
knows he's in
he
a bind.
he's
His
a
guy's business was not successful.
deceptive.
You can go pull his
How?
financials and all that, and it's pretty easy to figure out. But his neck was going down in his body as he tried to protect
How?
his throat. He made
It
it
would-
his
wait,
business as successful
how?
in some other way, but it wasn't successful financially. So that's the beginning. I left him with that brand around his eye, and you'll see if you watch the show, I'm on him pretty hard about that because I know that leaves a mark on his psyche so that he can't relax. Mark, what do you have?
Yeah, so here's the way I'm thinking about it. So he's being interviewed here by
I love all of these guys. Every time they start talking, I get excited.
Who works in LA. So a really good people person. It's that person's job to relax this person, to get them open and talking and feeling good and giving a good performance for the camera, essentially. So I'm thinking, well, what are his stress levels when you've got somebody who's a really good people person around you? Well, we see an opening sequence here of a lip lick, finger touches the eyelid, as Gregor says, that's stress. Then he takes a drink from his bottle. All of that in quick succession. All of those potentially pacifier gestures, including this big, like almost baby pacifier that he has. And think about that. There's a lot of infantile, juvenile behaviors that we'll see cropping up.
Oh
during
my
this. But we've
god.
almost got this kind of baby's bottle, which is both a pacifier and a blocking device, something for him to put between himself and you, the audience, or the interviewer. So
Oh.
that's instantly, pretty important from my point of view. In a situation which is totally designed
I'm
for
just saying,
stress to
ooh,
be reduced
oh.
and relaxation, his stress is already very, very high. And then he ends with that arm cross there at the end. That's like 4 quick images in quick succession of stress and pressure and wanting to put a barrier between himself and the audience there. So again, what I'm thinking in terms of the interrogation that we do later on, I'm thinking, okay, this person is potentially quite easy to heat up. Doesn't take much to heat them up. That's where I'll leave that.
Yeah, let me add one point, because Mark, I think you hit it. When he's pressing his eyebrow, he doesn't understand that brow is not higher, this one is lower. And so he's trying to groom constantly to fix that eyebrow. And we see that in real time, face to face.
And actually, I want people to pay attention to in the show. What happens is he has an excuse for that. Now, to Scott's point there, we've got somebody here who has an excuse for everything. It is always somebody else's or something else's fault. It's never his fault. It's never his problem. So again, to Scott's point of what is the personality type we have here, we see that an indicator there in the show of it's always somebody else's fault.
And we're getting more in depth into that in just a few minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
Killer. And back to the eye part.
Might have
There's a
some
part in there where I
alcohol.
think I'm talking, and then Greg jumps up his hand
Oh, I'm
again
24.
with the
24.
about that.
Also,
So
I
it's
wanted
important
to
to
ramble
keep in mind
about
as
how
you
it
watch,
was
you probably watch
freaking
that
cold
video
outside
session,
today.
make sure you
It was
take when
raining
he does
really,
that,
really
says what
hard.
he's doing. Is it really a nerd?
And I was so cold.
So, anyway, so that-
And I'm just
Hey,
like,
guys, I'm
I
not
need to
generally
move
a
somewhere
jerk,
warm
but
like
there's a
this.
time to
This
be a jerk.
is,
Well,
this is
that's
a
the thing.
lot.
That's the thing about an alpha. You can't always. You're not always a jerk.
I do
But when
not
you
like
are,
this cold.
You,
This
I'm
cold
good
is
at
not
it.
for me.
yeah. Well, it was a time to be one. So.
I see, you just moved to a different part of town, got it.
Yeah.
So would you say then that your business has been, keep trying to look over at the other screen if you don't mind. Would you say that your business has been successful?
The business has been very successful.
You've gotten,
All right, that's good.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there is somebody that made allocations that you did, that there were fake reviews or something. Tell me about that.
Pretty much all the women are saying that just because they cannot fathom that I actually have people who like me. I guess you just think everyone's going to agree with it. I mean, if you have a bad experience at a restaurant and you write a 2-star review, does that mean everyone's going to write a 2-star review? No. Okay. So they were accusing me of fabricating reviews. I guess they think I have enough time in my hands to create 300 different Gmail addresses and write 5-star reviews, despite the fact that when you click the profiles, you'll see they have pictures of other people and activities, dozens of other reviews in other places, which kind of implies they're real profiles. But, you know, some people are just hard-headed and believe what they're doing. Like these women, hence why they don't believe my allegations either. My side of
Wow. Bro, keep on sucking the tip like you do, because this is crazy. What? Why are you so mad? Why are you so mad? That was a lot. Whoa, a lot happened right there. Like, he really just went off on women for no reason. Okay, so they're like, I feel like you're lying. Like, no one would actually have all these good reviews, but no bad reviews. You could say there's evidence. Like, you could literally check yourself. There's evidence that people like it. You can even say, yeah, I might have, like, okay, because I don't know the story, but I'm guessing. So just listen to me ramble, not Rambo. I'm so happy I did not drink more. But he, instead of just saying, okay, yeah, but you get to see, like, there's proof, there's evidence. I'm not lying. You could check it out. I guess, like, that's a calmer way of doing it, or, like, you could just say there's evidence that these people are real. Or, I don't know, be way more calm about it. Like, oh, you don't think they're real? Well, I have proof that they are, I guess. I don't know how we get the proof, but if he could, yeah. Like, just, you're being very extreme. You're being very dramatic. And I paused at 15:12. He really does look like he has a baby bottle in his mouth. He literally looks like a grown child. Like, if you need a picture for the definition, right here. Right here. Crazy.
That's great. I love your passion. I love your energy. So thank you.
She does such a good job of keeping him fired up, like he's doing the right thing. All right, well, on this one, I'm going to go first. I usually don't talk a whole lot on these. When you deal with psychopaths, that's my favorite thing in the world. So I have a little bit more to add to some of these. As we're talking about him, going back to Mark's point a minute ago, before we started this one, it's always somebody else's fault. That's the thing with psychopath and what I'll term the clinical narcissist. You can't even brush up against that ego without really firing them up and getting them in attack mode. This is what we see here. He goes as far as using his pronouns, them and they. He uses the word they 6 times. He's totally trying to destroy the credibility of these women who are accusing him of his accusers by calling them and they. And he calls them once and they 6 times. He says the women or those women 2 times, one time each of those. As we go through these, we see 22 different times expressions in this short little clip. As we look at this, we're seeing it's a combination of disgust and disdain. As he goes through, if you watch, you'll see this part of this. Some of this comes from just normally talking when you talk and see those things go up.
Okay.
But his disgust and disdain for women, as Mark points out in the show, is over the top.
Right.
Unbelievable. You see
Right.
his nostrils flare up a little bit. It shows he's getting fired up as well. He's getting a little bit angry, trying to control that anger so he doesn't start going off and becoming the monster that I would assume this personality type would be. I'm not saying he's a monster. I'm just saying I would assume in this situation. And as you see these, a lot of people are going to think this guy is autistic. He's not autistic. Don't mistake what you're seeing and what you've heard before about autism and someone who's autistic or who's on the spectrum, because we're not seeing that. We don't see a whole lot of eyebrow movement, which is one of the most things you look for when you're dealing with autistic, which is one of the things I learned from Greg.
Oh, I could just pause it because I felt like I was just letting it run because I was really interested. So I have to pause it. I'll pause it for a while. I have to say stuff. What I'm going to say. I'm just going to ramble. I was rambling and then I stopped rambling. And I don't remember what I was rambling about. I don't know if I finished what I said or not. Or at least left off at a good, cliffhanger. I don't know. It was just a week ago. Oh. Really? Nice. I'm a little tired. I was dancing. But I will continue. I want to do hours. So I'm going to do hours.
Because when you're dealing with a psychopath, that, for example, if you're at a bar and someone starts staring at you from across the bar and they don't stop staring at you and you keep looking over, they're still looking at you. For me and you, it would be weird. It would be odd. It's an odd feeling. It's tough to do that, but it doesn't bother them. That's why you hear people. I felt like I was the only person in the room because they don't stop staring at you because they don't understand that it makes you feel weird, and they should feel weird about it because they can't. They don't have the empathetic tools to make that happen. The whole time he's blaming women. And I think Mark's probably going to go off on that here in a couple minutes. But that's this whole thing. It's always we deal with ego when we deal with psychopath. And so he's talking about women the whole time and how it's their fault and their problem, not him. It's not him. So, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so let me also backtrack just a bit. We had the luxury of talking to one of his accusers for an hour and spending real time asking her questions, reading her body language, baselining her, and she was 100% believable. We had zero doubt that what she told us happened. Now, and this comes into play very nicely as Mark catches him as he's looking for help and Mark catches him to talk about it. But he clearly shows disgust for women. Anytime he brings it up, he wrinkles his nose. That is not a classic male gesture, except for disgust. And that's one of the basics, one of the 7 that I have learned did not come from Ekman originally, came from Darwin, and Ekman added to those, which is pretty interesting. He also then sneers, and we typically think of a sneer as showing a canine, right? That's primates show canines when they're either terrified or they're angry.
Oh,
But
so he's basically silently growling.
Point, when somebody is autistic, they don't close space, is what I've typically noticed. And this being the billboard of emotion and the way to communicate with people, they don't use it as much. They also don't use their hands and engage you as much. So I don't think he's there. Then he starts to scratch his head as an adapter to release nervous energy when he gets to these Gmail accounts. And I think he does something that we would typically call an embedded confession. And that is, I don't have time to make up 300 Gmail accounts. Well, probably he does, because we know his things are not going well. So he sets Mark up nicely to be there to comfort him after I tear into him pretty good. So Mark, you want to go next and talk about what you did with that?
Yeah, so look, if you end up in an interview with me, I'm going to be all over your generalizations, because from my point of view, the way you generalize, the way you take the universe and boil it down into something that's manipulated, that you can move around and manipulate, that's a good map as to how you see the world and how you think it should function. So whenever I'm talking to anybody in a professional way, I'm trying to work out what do they generalize around? What do they boil stuff down into? Well, here's the generalizations we get from him. Pretty much all the women. So we've got all the women. So he's not very detailed. He's not like, well, this woman whose name is X, she said this, and this woman, she said this. Her name was this name, and it's pretty much all the women. And I guess they think, so the stress is on they think, and right at the end we get these women. The stress is on women, not these women. The stress is on the woman part of it. Then alongside that, alongside the call out to women, we do get the disgust. Yeah, we do get this lip pinning up to show the canine there, which I would put in the area of contempt, or more importantly, disdain. Now, let me tell you the difference between contempt and disdain, and why I make it disdain is because of these generalizations of all women.
Yeah.
Disdain is something around a social group. If I'm disdainful of you, the watcher, the listener here, it's that I don't think you belong in our group. You shouldn't be part of our society. So disdain is very powerful, because if the society disdains you, or an individual with power disdains you, it means they're going to cut off your ability to live in the group. You're dead. Basically. You're thrown out of society. I would suggest that his mindset is that women, in general, don't fit in.
Oh, it's a commercial. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Boop. Skip. Boop.
Is that women, in general, don't fit in society. They shouldn't be part of his group, his society, as he sees it. So that's why I would suggest we get something. I'm starting to see from him at this point. We've got something misogynistic here, quite extreme. And so that's why in the interview, in the interrogation, my mind is going, I'm going to hit that. I'm going to hit that hard, because we might get him to show some agreements with that. We might get him really showing himself around that. And certainly it's embedded enough and it's deep enough that if I call that out to him, he's going to feel very much psychologically seen. And again, that's going to ramp the pressure on him, the psychological pressure of the situation.
Oh, wow.
So that's my take on that. Chase, what do you got?
Yo,
So
they
we see a
ganging
pattern
up on
starting
him.
here where he's showing contempt.
They are
towards women,
ganging up on
and he's
him
using his water bottle as a pacifier every
in the
time
most
things start to get
peculiar.
difficult. That's all I'm going to say for this. You guys covered a whole lot.
Peculiar.
We'll go to the next.
Peculiar. I'm not saying correctly. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
there's
it
somebody
correctly.
that made allegations that you think that there were fake reviews or something. Tell me about that.
Pretty much all the women are saying that just because they cannot fathom that I actually have people who like me. I guess they just think everyone's going to agree with them. I mean, if you have a bad experience at a restaurant and you write a 2-star review, does that mean everyone's going to write a 2-star review? No. Okay. So they're accusing me of fabricating reviews. I guess they think I have enough time on my hands to create 300 different Gmail addresses and write 5-star reviews, despite the fact that when you click the profiles, you'll see pictures of other people and activities, dozens of other reviews in other places, which kind of implies they're real profiles. But, some people are just hard-headed and believe what they're doing. Like these women, hence why they don't believe my allegations either.
These women.
Things, I should say.
Wow.
That's great. I love your passion. Love your energy. So thank you.
You good?
I love your passion. I love your energy.
There's some misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So she let me text her.
Yeah. Beat up. He doesn't even know it.
I mentioned for a split second. This is how it happens. But she didn't believe me. She basically, her reply was basic body.
Verbally getting fucked up.
Because she thought I was
in the calmest of ways.
So she thought it would have been my private. But I was on my knees. And I even sent her a video, the same exact video I'm about to show you, in which I show her the table. It's at the lowest level. I have knee pads below there. They're not just there for fun, proving that I'm on my knees half the time. Therefore, it's possible you can feel another part of my body. I mean, she didn't see anything either. She didn't turn her head for a split second. She didn't hear me unzip. She didn't hear me drop my shorts, which she would have heard because it's in a quiet massage room. So those arguments are in my favor. But she just wasn't buying it. She's going on the biggest cheat ever, posting 1-star.
This dude's a rapist.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, So I didn't see, she didn't see anything either. On that phrase, we see him retreat right back and a full kind of turtling gesture there. So a minimizing behavior, essentially making himself smaller. It's something we instinctually do so the predator will pass on by. It's our most effective, cheapest way not to get attacked is to minimize and make ourselves smaller and stiller. It's part of the freeze aspect of freeze, flight, fight, faint. So that instantly signals to me there's a lot of stress under she didn't see anything either, which signals to me this is a point, this is something we should dig into because there's some real fear for him around this area. This is the exact part of the story that we should dig into. And he says, well, you know, the argument is in his favor. Well, I think it should be about evidence or
that's
facts,
a spicy idea.
not necessarily argument. So again, it feels to me like he's on his back foot around that. The big thing I want to point out here is this use of my private. So we're into, I would say, quite infantile, juvenile language. My private singular. So I think he's taught when he says my private. I think he's specifically talking about his penis. I think that's what he's talking about, and yet he doesn't say it.
It was his chin.
Yeah, right. And I think to what Chase might, if I were Chase, I think Chase would be calling that distancing behavior. I could be wrong, but putting my Chase hat on, I reckon that's what I'm seeing. But I'm going to wait for Chase to tell me whether I'm right on that one. So Chase, what do you got?
That is distancing behavior. Absolutely. And distancing means it's a couple of things. We'll tend to soften the severity of crimes. Instead of murder, we'll say hurt. Instead of steal, we might say take. And sometimes we'll completely omit a victim's name.
Wow.
So when somebody says, like, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, that is a form of distancing, psychological distancing. And I group those together. So one thing that innocent people will do, two things actually, they'll make a strong, confident, positive denial. Strong, confident, positive denial that nothing happened.
Oh, wow.
And they will also display anger that doesn't typically dissipate over time. And this is based on research from John Reed. It's back in the old Reed manuals. And I thought it was interesting when he said the knee pads aren't just there for fun, which could imply that is one reason, but maybe not another.
Wow.
There might be two reasons there. And he's saying, she didn't hear me unzip, she didn't hear me drop my shorts. He's not clearly saying that the person is a liar, which is a humongous red flag to me. If someone's saying something that's untrue, it's totally acceptable for us to call them a liar. And guilty suspects tend to focus on evidence or the lack of provable things in a scenario, and innocent people will focus on denying the crime, the severity of the crime, and the commission of the crime, which we don't see here. And finally, he then refers to her behavior against him as a jihad, which I think is a metaphor for him, either A, from some kind of cultural upbringing, he was born here in the United States, or B, it's a metaphor to make people view this person's actions in the most horrific way possible. And that's my quick summary. Greg, what do you got?
Wow.
Yeah, so we start to see a
Well,
pattern
it's
here,
great.
and you'll hear me approach this pattern when
Well,
we
it's
get
great.
on the Dr. Phil show. He is negotiating the guilt. He's negotiating the question. If I condition the question, is a term a lot of people would use, then I can answer the question the way I want.
Wow.
Did you have sexual relations? Good example. But if I ask you, did you have sex? Well, not really sexual relations. Then you're conditioning the question. And you'll hear that, assuming it made it on Dr. Phil, when I asked him, did you put your genitals on this woman? My bare genitals? Well, no, that's not what I asked you, did I? And he starts that pattern here by saying she didn't hear me unzip, she didn't hear this, she didn't hear that. So his
Wow.
denial is about those things, not about whether he did any of this or not. He gets to that halting pause again when he's talking about her, and I forget exactly where it's here, but you'll hear that, and that halting pause that he used in this very successful business. So
Okay.
it's a really good indicator. And by now, that intake eye, the other eyebrow is sticking up enough, he's poking on it and starting to pay attention to it, and it comes into play in this show. And then
Damn.
that's
I feel like I'm not saying enough. He turtled. He turtled. He turtled. He was literally turtle.
He's looking like a Muppet or something. He's
A Muppet.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Yeah, truly. All right, go
Get
back
him,
to what
Scott.
Chase has talked about. When someone is guilty of something, they're not going to focus on. They're going to focus differently than the person who's innocent. The person again who's innocent, you can go in and say, when you open up, you may say,
I'm not
"Okay,
saying
look,
not
all the evidence
goddamn
shows that
thing,
you did
not
this.
God.
We know you did it. We talked to two guys down there, saw you do it.
saying
So, I know
BS.
you did it. There's no question about you doing
You
it.
know what?
And the more you talk, the person who didn't do it is most likely just going to sit. They'll sit there for a second at the very top of it. They're going to say, "Wait a minute."
I feel like when people start watching this,
10 on getting
or
out.
watching
Especially
me,
when somebody
technically.
talking about a murder or something that's really bad. They're going to go to 10 because they're like, "My life, you know, oh my God." So they're going to go to 10. That's going to be really hard to bring them back down. Really tough to get them calmed back down.
I would like to just like
Most likely would be guilty. Most who did do it.
answer questions while doing stuff.
Talk to people
Like,
out
I would
there,
like
they
to
do
watch
it. They
this
may say,
and like answer
you know, they may get
questions.
mad and say, "No, one man didn't do
So
it."
when I'm talking
They'll calm down
over
very
it,
quickly because they will know what information
like,
you have.
I'm talking over it for a reason.
Here's
but I
what
can
was
still
one of
enjoy
the
it at
other
the
things
same
which we
time.
alluded to, we had more information
You know?
that we had that we got from this woman that was in the online green room that we talked to. We found out what was in the room. We found out what it looked
That's
like.
what I
There's
want.
a door. There's a figure on
Because
the
I know
door.
it's gonna be
And what
fun.
curtains, and we're going to use those
Very
things as we
interesting.
talked to him. As Chase, the plan was for Chase to put on a mind virus, which is something you throw in somebody's head and they start thinking about it. As you're talking to them about something else, and it gets bigger. What do they know
I wonder what people ask.
that I need that they haven't told me yet? What do they know? So when that person gets really mad and stays up there, the innocent person, really tough to bring them down because they're concerned about what's going to happen. The guilty person, they're going to know what you have. They're going to keep going. And in this case, he keeps fighting these specific points.
He's
got
balanced.
specific points to fight, and keeps
I
bringing them
wonder
up,
if
fighting
sunflower
every
seeds
time.
go with wine.
That shows you that most likely in this situation, this guy's being deceptive, and he's probably the one that did that, or is the guilty party in that situation. So I'll stop right there.
But you hit something earlier as well, the whole amygdala issue, because when the person goes into fight or flight, that's real, and anger, that's real, it's hard to bring back down. But if they're pretending,
Sorry, the reason I shook my head
Because
back
when you
and
get that
forth,
fired up, it's hard to shut
there
that
was
back
a
down.
sunflower seed
one of the first
and there was
Most
two
of the time.
seeds
one
and
of the
one
first lessons I
sunflower
learned
seed.
about body language and behavior was I was working SEER, and guys would all.
So I got a double crunch, and it was the greatest thing I experienced.
Every SF guy you ever meet, toughest guys on earth. All their parents.
Because
died
I could
when they
feel
were 8 years
both
old in
crunch
a
at
car
the same.
crash,
I
and
was
they'll
like,
tell you. And I went
what?
out and talked to Psych who worked
That's
with us there.
crunchy.
Psych, and I said,
I
how do
love
you
that.
overcome that? He said, well, it takes a certain part of your brain to cry. What do you think happens if you ramp up the pressure? And what happens when you ramp up the pressure and the crying's not real is it goes away. If it's real, it gets worse, just like anger.
Exactly. And we won't get into the intricacies of the fake cry. We should sometimes, because man, it is hilarious. And like 2 days ago on Dr. Phil, there was a one on that was fake crying, and I was on the floor. It was so fun. It was so funny because they split those eyes and they start talking like this. And they put something in front of them. It's it's one of my favorite things in the world to see.
I'm grieving myself.
Oh, no, because there's no grief.
There's no misunderstanding. So she let me text her as a long text, just explaining, you felt my arm and my chin for a split second. This is how it happens. But she didn't believe me. She basically, her reply was basic body mechanics would imply otherwise because she thought I was standing. So she thought it would have been my final, but I was on my knees. And I even sent her a video, the same exact video I'm about to show you, in which I
You keep
showed her
on
table.
talking about
It's like the
this
lowest
fucking
level. I have
video.
that's below there. I'm
Like,
there for fun, proving that I'm
I
on
want
my
to see
knees.
this video now.
Therefore, it's
You
not
talking
something
too much
to
about this
but
video. Like this video about to save your life. I know it's not.
She didn't turn her head for a split second. She didn't hear me unzip. She didn't hear me drop my shorts, which she would have heard because it's in a quiet massage room. So those arguments are my
Why you
favorite.
keep on bringing
But
those
she just
points
wasn't
up,
running
bro?
it. She's going on the biggest jihad ever, posting 1-star reviews.
Why you wasting time, bro?
We good?
Yep.
Very good.
So you don't think that had she not left her keys, she probably wouldn't have called the police. She was just trying to.
Yeah, she may not have even. So that's a shame because that was not reported to the news. So I just think it's still so serious
Mm.
Sure.
that it is. But her reporting, contacting the local news.
I love the reporter. She's like, sure. Yeah. I believe you. You're right.
Just think you had a bad experience.
Mm-hmm.
Took me to the state boards and the news. But some guy who just
Mhm.
works out of his home, not like out in the public studio, and there's some doubt. It just that definitely caught me by surprise, you know.
Sure. So are any
Something is off
any
about
of
him.
Leah's allegations of inappropriate contact with you true? Or are they all false?
Well, she only has one allegation. I think you said allegations plural.
Sorry, that's my mistake. Yes. Is the allegation, I should say, I'm sorry, not plural, is the allegation that Leah has against you that you inappropriately touched her false?
Her Leah's allegation against me is completely false.
Wonderful. Great. Yeah, let's talk.
Chase, what do you got?
Yes.
Gotta pause it right there. Gotta pause it. Pause it. Pause it. Oh no. He was like, it's completely, and utterly, yep, false. It's false. Definitely false. It's definitely false. It's definitely false. Blame me. Definitely false. It's not. It's not. He lying. He a liar. He a horrible liar too. Lie. Shit's hilarious. I swear you need to watch this. You don't even have to watch the whole thing. You don't even have to watch the whole thing. Just go to 35 minutes. Go to 35. I think that was a whole minute. I think it happened less than a second, so you might get a little more. Ooh, it's very entertaining to watch. He was like, yeah. I'm like, what's wrong with you, boy? What is wrong with you, boy? What's wrong with you, boy? boy, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
When he realizes the question that's coming, he exercises his upper forehead in the grease muscle that Greg displays so beautifully on many of our videos. And he starts nodding as the second question is coming and continues nodding.
I actually
all the way
want to
through
try
his
it with
answers.
the
I thought that was pretty interesting. And as he says the
Oh my
word
god.
false,
I smelled it and it
he
was like
engages
slap,
in
slap.
eye blocking,
Get slap.
which is a potential deception indicator. And then it's followed immediately by an eye roll. And eye rolling is also
But the thing
eye
about it is
blocking.
just the smell
Pardon me, I don't
that
know if you
turns
guys
me
agree,
off
we've never
to it
discussed this.
with wine. Because
I've
when
seen
I
it 1,000
actually
times
start
where
drinking
somebody's
wine, I'm
doing-
like, I can kind of drink this
doing
like
this,
water.
they're
It's
doing
kind
an
of
eye block,
dangerous. I'm
and
going to
they
be
look
slow.
back at the interrogator too soon. And they realize
But it's
they
the
made
smell
eye
that
contact
makes
too
me,
soon,
like, you know,
and they
have you
break
ever
it
smelled
immediately, and the eye
something,
roll is very common in that instance,
I don't know,
which is
unpleasant?
exactly what happens here. It's
Kind of
a
don't want to
great
get
textbook
near
response.
it. And then it has to
And
go
it's followed
near
by
my nose. And I'm
contempt,
like,
facial expression.
but when I start
towards the
drinking it, it's
interviewer this time, who
fine.
is a woman.
I
And he
dropped
engaged
my
in another eyebrow
sunflower
flash
seed,
where
but I
he's
do
turning his
not
head
know
to the
where.
side. And these are
Did I drop
image
it? Did I
management
drop it
for
in?
him.
No.
Is
No.
especially if
And
what
I
Scott said
have
is true.
lost.
I disagree
I have
slightly
found
with
the
Scott. I
sunflower
think
seed.
there's a potential for a malignant narcissism
Okay.
here.
So
Drink
I'm gonna try
I'm
not
done.
to smell
I
it
only have a few
and
minutes.
just start
This
gulping.
guy turns into, I'm going to use the polite term,
Actually,
into a barracks
let me,
lawyer. Suddenly, he is going to parse words, not allegations, allegation. Well, I'd say, well, if any of them are true, then okay. But he starts to parse words. We call that barracks lawyer or something a little bit more rude, typically in the Army. Then he goes to containing all body language. If you notice, his hands stop moving. He's not illustrating. He's not adapting. He's not doing anything. His hands drop. They get down by his side or somewhere off camera. And then I think Chase, you're on with the eye blocking, but I think his eye roll is more than that. I think he's conscious of breaking eye contact and that it looks deceptive. And so that's something he probably does in normal life. But if he breaks eye contact down or to the side, I think he's afraid that someone will perceive it that way. And I think it's part of this overall image he's trying to portray. To your point, Scott, he's got an image he wants to hold up. And, I'm this guy. If you go and read this guy's profile, he's got X number of degrees. He's come up with new ways of getting a college degree. He invented water. I mean, just go read this stuff. He's got all of that in play. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so I want to pick up just on, I think Greg and Chase's point there that he is already negotiating around the terms. So,
Okay.
class
So what I
second,
did
as they
was
just said, that
get the
eye roll,
sunflower
I wanna pick
seeds.
up on
I'm
Chase's
filling
eye
them up
roll.
right now.
So for me, the eye roll is going to come in a
So
couple of
when I
places,
take
in
a sip
that
of wine,
it's either
I have it with the
gonna be
knife
an
because
image
I'm
of
trying to see
disdain,
if that would be a good
again,
pairing or not.
or it's a juvenile.
But weirdly, while
behavior.
chewing
So
the
you
nut,
see
I
eye
feel like it
rolls
would be
a
really great.
deal in teenagers,
Like, I actually can't wait to
especially
drink
around their
this.
parents. Their parents do something. It's like,
Okay.
oh, there they go.
Spread it around the mouth.
Again, it's saying
Got a nice
you're
coat.
really not part of
I'm
my
ready.
group. You really don't know how the world works, do you? So again, when I'm looking at interviewing
wow.
this person, that's a big move. An eye roll is
Oh,
quite
wow.
a big juvenile move, and I want to be
Woof.
able to trigger a whole bunch more of those. So I think when I'm going into this interview,
I could do it like a
if I
pro,
can
but that
perform
first
a
sip,
little
ooh,
like a strong
it's because I
parent
stopped.
around them, I might
'Cause
be
if I
able
could
to
do-
trigger
The thing about it is
those
that
kind of
I'm gonna make the
behaviors.
face
So
anyway,
go back to the interview, kind of
but
get a
I
sense
could
of
also
what I'm doing,
gulp it
the
down.
tone of voice
So it's just
that I
like,
might have, and a lot of that downward intonation
no matter what, if I
that I'm
stop,
doing, it's rather
I'm gonna hit it
like
with.
a mum or a dad who's telling their child,
Even though,
how
truthfully,
disappointed and wrong their
weirdly,
performance
the
has been.
aftertaste is
Again,
good.
not because that's who I
Because
am,
when
not be that at
the
times,
liquor,
it's who I'm trying to
like,
be
it just
in order
whoop,
to provoke an
washes
emotional
over
state
your
from
tongue,
him
like
and
over it.
trigger those
It kind of
behaviors
doesn't
in
mix
the
together
studio
like I
that
feel
we
like it
saw in
should.
the interview. So you, the audience watching the Dr. Phil show, can go, oh,
But
this is who
yeah,
we've got in front of us.
aftertaste,
Somebody who is
because I still
disdainful,
taste like the nut,
disrespectful of women,
still taste the
of
wine, and it's
status,
actually
of
nice together.
the
I'm like,
governance
can
of
they
the
make
situation.
sunflower
He's very
seed wine?
disdainful of the system
Like the
by
sweetest
which his
wine out here?
professional, former
Let's go.
profession is being governed.
Oh, that would
those
be
rules
cool.
don't apply to him.
I mean, if you
Again,
can make
that's the
wine out of
source.
rice, come on.
It's a classic kind of
You can make
behavior
it out of
that
some
you
nuts.
may well see from somebody who is a narcissist or certainly psychopathic. Certainly doesn't have any think the rules of society to them. So Scott, tell us what you got. End this one up for us.
All right. Well, I'm going to go against everything you guys said about the eye roll. I don't think it's eye blocking. I don't think he's rolling his eyes. I think it's a tick. I think we're seeing his brain flipping out, and that's what. And it's a tick he's got because he does it. I think twice in this thing, and that's not natural. What he's doing is not natural. There, it's a tick. You'll see people with ticks. They'll do the oddest. They'll go. They'll have to wear like this thing. I got this happen a long time ago. We were in the studio once, and the engineer, Scotty Patrick, goes, "Hey man, what are you doing with your eyes?" And it was one of those records we were doing that was so stressful. It been going on for months. And I was doing this with my eyes. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know. What am I doing?" He said, "Dude, you've been doing this for like 2 months." I was like, "Why didn't you tell me that? What do I do?" So that was it. That was a tick I developed from stress of sitting there doing that all the time. So I think what we're seeing there is the stress because I think his amygdala, his whole system is starting to freak out.
He actually
There's
gave it a
difference
couple of
between
his
a sociopath and a
life
psychopath. Again, when we're
to
talking about
explain
that,
a tick.
every psychopath is a narcissist.
And how
Be they
it could
malignant, be
actually
they
come at
parental,
any
however we
time.
gonna term it. But not every
That's
narcissist
crazy.
is a psychopath. There's a big difference that we've got to keep in mind as we go along with this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing. I agree with what you guys are talking about. But the one part about the eye roll, that's different. That's his brain is starting to overload. He's trying to hold in that anger because I'll bet you when you look at this guy, he gets mad. This guy gets mad. That's what they call the slipping of the mask. And you see that thing slips when a woman marries a man, and he's been nice, and it's been wonderful at this point. They're kindred spirits, blah blah blah. The next thing you know, you get married, and 5 minutes later, this guy turns into a dang monster. I think that's what we're seeing a hint of there. He's trying to control this. It's not he's flipping out and his eyes are going back in his head, but I think that's one of his things. He gets one of his adapters to get rid of stress. He gets rid of a lot of stress. But he's trying to control that because he's on video and he knows it. So he tries to keep that under control. That's what I believe we're looking at there. Now,
Damn.
back when she asked him, she says,
He had to take.
is Leah's allegation, he says, she says, is Leah's allegation against you completely false? He doesn't say yes. He goes on to explain again these parts of it that he should have said yes, and that was it. And he should fight for that yes, and he didn't. He didn't say yes. He waited. Then he speaks of himself again. Back to Chase is saying he looks at himself again in the monitor to see how he looks because he's got that narcissistic thing to him, the triple narcissism. And I want to go.
Yeah, I'm still not saying that. You know, they usually ramble off and on. So it's actually normal.
One thing to add, if you don't think these tools work, we were able to induce stress in this guy over the internet.
Very quickly too.
Tools work, guys.
So you don't think that had she not left her keys, she probably.
I feel like if I could, even though technically I was rambling, I realized I was rambling a while about some nut wine. Still think that should happen, even though that was like a couple of minutes ago.
I wouldn't have called the police. She was just trying to.
Yeah, she may not have even. So that's a shame because that was not reported to the news. So it just was so much more serious
Sure.
Wow.
than it is. But but her reporting, contacting the local news did kind of surprise me. That's not something you expect. You just think you had a bad experience. Report me to the state boards and the news, or some guy who just works out of his home, not like out in public studio, and there's some doubt. It just that caught by surprise,
Sure.
Wow.
I would admit. So are any of
You sound.
Lia's allegations of inappropriate contact with you true? Or are they all false?
Well, she only has one allegation. I think you said allegations plural.
Sorry, that's my mistake. Yes. Is the allegation,
Hopefully-
I should say, I'm sorry, not plural.
Is that he
is the
does keep
allegation
contact, but
that
he
Leah
does
has
go
against you that you
down after a
inappropriately
while.
touched your false.
And now he's shaking his head
Leah's
very
allegation
crazily.
against me is Leah's false.
His actions with his head is pretty kind of dramatic. He's doing a lot of this, a lot of,
Stupid things.
Body
The news
rolling,
is
I
never gonna
guess.
report the details of it. So now that
but only with
public
his
is gonna
head.
hear it, think I'm
So
just
it's
this
kind of
horrible
weird.
Felon. I mean, it sounds so much worse than it is. That's how
Are
they
you-
are.
Are you a horrible felon?
I have a perfectly clean background check. I've never been arrested or been to a police station in my life.
Are you a felon?
I want to keep my record clean and fighting now to do that because this could lead to an indictment. It could.
Sure.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so this one's loaded, and I won't take everything.
I feel like
because
he's-
for its all. One of my
I know they don't care about my perspective, but I feel like he's trying to act like an adult. Like, you know how people say now, I'm adulting. I'm drinking wine while eating cheese. I'm adulting. And I'm like, yeah, that's adulting. It's kind of like that. But it's like the box wine. It's like the American cheese slices. It's not even on like, I forgot what it's called, but not a slab. I guess a paddle, like little one paddle. Put your cheese there. It's not even that. it's like aluminum tray. I'm just like, ooh, that is pale comparison. Like, ooh, I feel like I didn't explain that well, but I'm gonna watch this when I'm done and see how I explain things. Even though I really shouldn't go off for this, but I mean, sometimes I talk like this. Well, and see how I can improve myself. Basically, that's what I was trying to say. But yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, it's only 10:48.